Hey, this is Sam Leonard. Now in this video, what I want to talk about is the path to spirituality, because it's interesting to see how people get into spirituality in the first place, especially if they're not someone who's been brought up around that sort of environment. And obviously there's some preconceived notions about spirituality. Most people's understand of it might be related to Buddhism or something that they might think is a bit woo-woo. So I just thought I'd talk about this and how I got into it, and how a lot of my friends who are also on that same sort of journey, what it is that they're doing, how they got into it. Because it's quite interesting, because my view on spirituality is that it is the only game in town. I mean, whatever your path is, whatever you're doing in life, whatever it is you're looking to master or be skilled at, then ultimately everything's pointing in the same direction. Everything's pointing to self-development, improving yourself, self-actualisation, which ultimately is what the spiritual path is all about. So firstly, I would like to talk about the Buddhism and spirituality, what people think about it, because a lot of people are, they distance themselves from religions. And I mean, some people say that Buddhism isn't really a religion, it's more of a philosophy. And I would say if you class it as a religion, it's the best religion, because it's discussing how you can actually improve yourself. It's focused on yourself, not worshipping the external deity. It's about improving yourself and using certain principles to do that. So I quite like that actual concept of it. Now, obviously, anything like that where it's quite organised, this is what people get put off by. And there's also the idea of science and religion. There's that difference there, and people are more science-based these days. But one thing I would say on that is that, a lot of the mainstream, just like mainstream everything, it's always a bit, it's a limited perspective, with new science, with quantum physics, science that actually talks about the non-physical. This is where we're getting into the realms of, we're quite fortunate these days that we have this information. We can link science and spirituality in a practical way, how it actually helps us to grow and develop within ourselves, to understand ourselves, to increase our awareness and understand where we need to go forward from there, to ultimately just live, a better life, live more in abundance, more in joy, more in all the sort of good emotions we want to feel, and reducing the bad emotions that we don't want to feel. And that's ultimately what it's about. I mean, you look at what people are doing. Everyone is trying to feel better. Ultimately, that's what people are doing. I mean, you look at everything that people do, they're always going towards the just get off these leaves, they're a bit crunchy, aren't they? Everyone is going towards feeling better. Ultimately they're looking at doing things that make them feel better and avoiding things that make them feel rubbish. Now, obviously, once you get to a certain area of personal development, you understand that how you feel about something, how the meaning you give it, the perspective you give it, ultimately comes down to yourself and your understanding of that. And a lot of people don't really have the tools for that, because they don't understand how to deconstruct your psychology, and how to, elements of self-reflection, and really how to understand yourself in a way that you can improve yourself and be more in control, more in tune with your emotions and how you react to external things or situations or people. So yeah, this whole thing about people ultimately aiming to feel better about themselves. You know, you can look at it in everything that people do. People are always looking to have more fun. They're looking to do things they enjoy. I mean, even if you look at I mean, I won't get into the concepts of good and bad, because that's another thing. I mean, obviously that's perception as well. But you look at people who do like bad things, as it were. Ultimately, they're looking to, in their model of the world, they're looking to make themselves feel better, even if it's at the cost of other people. People like having better feelings. You know, even when people get drunk, they're looking to get on a high to feel better, and it's all really, and like I am here, getting out in nature. Everyone likes getting out in the sun. They like getting out into the woods, getting out into nature, and that's because it's connection to source. We have, you know, we feel better when we're in nature because we feel a level of connection with it, whether you admit that or not, or you see yourself as particularly spiritual or not. We all have a connection with it, and we all feel better when we're in nature, and ultimately they're all the same things. They're, you know, feeling better about ourselves and moving towards that path of connection, oneness. And I think once you understand the elements of quantum physics, of understanding that the non-physical has more of an effect than the physical. Unfortunately, we have this mainstream science that basically is obsessed with just proving, or just focusing on the physical elements, and anything outside of that, if it can't prove it, then it will just dismiss it. And you know, this is the stage where science has become a religion. You know, if you just so fundamentally looking to prove that, oh, this is right, we're not going to talk about that because we don't know how to prove it. But the thing is that quantum physics has been around for a long time. It's been proving things. There've been multiple tests to basically prove that we are living in a virtual reality, that the non-physical affects the physical, which is why once you understand this is why people start to focus on the non-physical more, because it has a fundamental effect. It's the quantum to Newtonian transition point. There is a delay. You know, things that you think take a bit of time. It's like the law of attraction stuff, but it's, you know, it takes a bit of a delay to actually manifest into the physical. And this is what ultimately a lot of the spirituality is talking about. Now we have the tools with quantum physics to understand why things happen in a certain way. Obviously there's certain things that we're not going to understand, but that's okay. You know, it's okay to live in a question, to understand that we're not going to understand everything. I mean, in our lifetime, we're not going to understand a lot of things that happen, and things that in our physical rule set, as it were, we're not going to understand why everything is the way it is, and that's okay. We're just using as much get as much knowledge as we can based on the information that we have to understand it and live better lives based on that. So ultimately, I mean, lots of those things I just said are topics in themselves that I could discuss. But ultimately, I think the reason spirituality is the only game in town is because once you start to improve yourself, once you start to reflect on yourself, you increase your self-awareness, you understand your you're doing more self-reflection. Why do I do this? Why is this habit? Why do I self-sabotage? Why do I think these certain things? You know, what environment have I grown up in that makes me think certain things? You know, what influences have told me that? Are those correct? Do they serve me? There's all these questions that unfortunately most people don't ask themselves, and you know, their level of self-awareness isn't as it should be. And you know, unfortunately, this level of ignorance is what causes a lot of suffering. And this is why there's a lot of conflicts, and everyone's don't understand the basic human needs that we have, which we will defend. You know, we will act in congruence with that. We will act in congruence with our identity, and without really doing that level of self-reflection, having that level of compassion, understanding that everyone is acting from their level of awareness, from their model of the world, from their understanding of the world. And once we have that level of compassion, we get to understand people on a different level. And that's easier once we have done the work ourselves, and we become a lot more humble, because we understand that we're not perfect. And if we're trying to prove that, then we're probably covering up for something else. So for me, when I started working, it wasn't long before I was just like, nah, this isn't it. There's something else. There's more to life than this. So I started looking into different businesses, more flexible businesses that gave me time freedom, financial freedom, where I could travel and basically make more money as well. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? I don't buy into a lot of the mainstream of why people do certain things. Everyone is working, 40 hours a week, and they're ultimately doing the same thing as everyone else, just because that's what everyone does, and they don't question it. If you want a quick fix, then basically do the opposite of what most people do, and you'll be on the right path. So yeah, I didn't get that, working 50 years of your life and not question it. Yeah, I was just like, nah, I don't do that. Ultimately, the path to entrepreneurship is a difficult one, and it wasn't a smooth one at all. A lot of elements of that I'm still working on. But getting into entrepreneurship, it basically means that you're responsible for your income, for your business, and this leads to an element of self-development, of reading, of learning, of going on courses, of meeting other people with a similar mindset, of improving themselves. And once we do that, we start to reflect on ourselves. We start to increase our awareness. What do I need to improve? What can I improve to ultimately get the best out of my business? Because you're responsible. You're responsible for your income and what happens there. And then that element of self-reflection, that increasing of self-awareness, that really gets you on the path. That's the beginning path. Why a lot of people in the West are now looking towards spirituality, because you get to this element of, or this place of self-reflection, and you just can continue going. And this brought me to mix with people who are entrepreneurs of very high level, and people who have done a lot of work on themselves, people who have really taken the time to deconstruct their psychology, to and to rebuild again, understand why they are doing certain things. And if you want to be successful in business, then this is what you need to do. I mean, unless you have that environment where you've grown up with those influences of how to start a business, how to manage money, financial intelligence, then ultimately, most people don't have that. And ultimately you need to work on yourself to improve those things. And that's what a lot of these people have done. And now, again, they've continued down that path. They've continued going down that journey, and they've got to the stage where they're they're getting to new levels of self-improvement, of feeling good all the time, which is a bizarre concept to many people, and most people think that's not possible. Most people think it's not possible to choose how you react, to choose how you feel. Now, it's not easy. Definitely. I mean, I'm working on lots of things at the moment, still trying to, work in progress, as it were. And, it takes time. And this is another reason why people don't do it. A lot of these things, doing the work on yourself, doing work on your business, going outside of the norm, it's difficult. And this is why a lot of people don't choose that path. Some people don't know that path is open to them, unfortunately. But, people like myself, people like my mentors, my friends who are on this journey, we understand that, one of the areas of growth is to contribute. This contributing to others, sharing the knowledge, and helping other people increase their awareness and, understand that there is another way. And the good thing about spirituality is that it's not like a religion. You don't have to do certain things at certain times, or you're going to be punished, or any of that sort of stuff. It's more about self-reflection, about growth, about understanding the non-physical world and how it reflects on the outer physical world, and ultimately getting to a state where you can feel joy and happiness, love. You can feel more compassionate and understanding of others. And why wouldn't you want to feel that? I mean, that's like the ultimate goal, isn't it? And many of my friends who are on this journey, they all live amazing lives. They travel, they have abundance of money and wealth, they live in exotic places, and they're living true dream lifestyles. And this is the only game in town. I mean, what else is there? There's many of these entrepreneurs who don't always go down this path. I mean, not everyone in business or money will ultimately go down this path, because it's some people do get sucked into the money. They haven't really done that level of self-reflection where they understand what's important. They don't understand why they might be doing certain things. You can be successful in business and still not understand your psychology at a level where you have this need for significance or approval, and you're making all this money based on other people, based on proving that you're good enough to other people. And so not everyone will go down this path, but I mean, if you look at the non-physical, the fact that this is a virtual reality, then you start getting into the realm of past lives, and the fact that we are ultimately energy. We're manifested in a physical form, and you get to understand that it doesn't matter so much if you don't come to that realization on this journey, because there's next time. Ultimately, it's about increasing your level of a consciousness, and we all are one. We all are one. We are a collective consciousness. We're points of consciousness on our human experience, and then we go back into the consciousness, and then we come back to experience different things. And ultimately, when you understand the different the levels of consciousness, the collective consciousness, then you look at things in a different way. You look at things in good and bad, and why things happen, and you get a different perspective on everything. And it's quite empowering, because you don't have that emptiness inside a lot of people, where the unknowing, the not knowing why things are happening a certain way. And so you get to a peaceful place. And talking of consciousness, there's a great book by David Hawkins, who's sadly no longer with us, and he didn't get the recognition for his work, and it might be some time before people catch up to it. But he wrote a book, and using kinesiology, he calibrated the level of self-consciousness. And this is basically in basic terms, if you're not familiar with this, is down the bottom you'll be sort of the low emotional feelings, and at the top you've got the high emotional feelings. So down the bottom, and you can also look at it as in states of emotional intelligence. I mean, ultimately your emotional intelligence will dictate fundamentally the quality of your life. If you have a high emotional intelligence, then you're not going to be caught up in the low level emotions. You're going to be going out there. You're not going to be caring what people think so much. You're going to be empowered to do things, to serve, to build a life that you want. But going back to the levels of consciousness, they, the lower levels are things you would obviously understand, the low level emotional feelings, which, ultimately we want to get away from. The higher ones are things like unconditional love, reaching levels of compassion for other people. And this, it's very similar. Again, it's using practical new science, as it were, to understand the reality we live in, to understand spirituality in a practical sense. And it's, like I said, it's very empowering, and we can use this as a basis to understand how can we increase our vibrational frequency, which is how the level of which we vibrate. And a high vibrational frequency is a high level of consciousness, like good feelings. So when you're feeling happy, you have a higher vibrational frequency, and there's different methods you can use to increase your vibrational frequency more regularly. And this is one of the steps that you take to feel better, and more of the time, and increasingly more and more. And one of the things, this is why people in spirituality, they do meditation, they do certain breathing exercises that bring up their emotional state. I mean, me and my friends on this journey, we do things that we analyze our psychology, we work on ourselves. It's like a level of deep work, really self-reflection, looking into your past, looking into traumas, looking at things that have happened to you, how that's affected you, and how you can basically rewire your circuitry, how you can rebuild your psychology for a more empowering life, for a life on your terms, things that serve you. So ultimately, this is why people in spirituality do these sort of practices, like meditation, like reading, like learning, like spending time with the right people, switching off the media, switching off the negativity, switching off the falsehoods in the world, which is another thing. Once you come to a new level of awareness, you get to understand quite quickly what's real and what's not, which is why most of my friends, or all of my friends on this path, we all think the same things about how things are in the world. It's not really open to debate, because we're constantly learning, we're constantly understanding how the world works, how psychology works, how people work, and we're doing that work on ourselves. And once you do that level of reflection, awareness, you get to see that in other people, you get to understand why people do certain things. So I think that basically sums it up for this video. I mean, on my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about these different subjects, and I'll go into lots of individually a lot of the concepts I've talked about here. But I just wanted to do an overview video of spirituality, consciousness, self-development, and ultimately why people get into it, and what you can expect from it, and how it will benefit you. You don't have to be some hardcore Buddha meditating on a mountain or anything like that, although you can do some crazy meditation retreats, 10 hours a day and all that sort of stuff. But start with the next step, just a small step in the right direction, more discipline, and less regret. and this is ultimately what we want to do. And start reflecting on yourself, start spending time with the right people. You know, your peer group is everything. It's you know, you're going to be you're a product of your peer group, as it were. So, you know, start doing the right things that you know most people know what they need to do. They, you know, if they really reflect on it, you start to understand areas where you're self-sabotaging, and you take steps. It's not a, you know, it's not just a continuous upward curve or line. It's, you know, there's fluctuations along the journey, and you know, you're not going to grow in a straight line. Some days you're going to be down, some days you won't have as much control over your emotional state, but ultimately it is the only game in town. Ultimately, if you just want to feel better or feel great now, is one of my mentors, one of the things he says. You know, if you feel crap, then do something that changes your state. Get out of it. Don't accept that of yourself. Take responsibility for yourself, your emotional state, how you react, and where you are in your life and where you want to go. And that's ultimately what it's all about. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If you've got any questions, then please leave them in the comments, and I'll be sure to answer them. Or if there's any videos you particularly want me to do, and I'll be sure to address that. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to continue walking in this lovely forest, and yeah, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.